Funerals. Kind of a somber prelude for a talk on hedonism. But funerals do a fine job at illuminating the deeper questions of meaning. It is there, when we are bidding our fond farewells, that we are reminded of the transience of our lives. And in that reminder cries the question, how do we live well? Carpe diem. Live life to the fullest. Live every day like it's your last. These maxims are inspiring in light of such loss. But can we truly embrace them? I recall a teacher pronouncing these life-affirming sentiments after a classmate and dear friend of ours died tragically in our junior year of high school. The teacher no doubt spoke those words with sincerity, but how are we to honor them? How was I? For me, it begged the question, knowing that my time is limited, would I study for that upcoming exam or skip it for a more enjoyable road trip somewhere with my friends, deepening bonds with my peers? Or perhaps I should clamp down on my studies, foregoing more enjoyable activities, parties, evening hangouts on the pike, smoking weed backstage in the drama room. After all, a good life requires sacrifice, does it not? Maybe I'll study. Nah, maybe I'll smoke weed with my friends in the drama room. After all, I could be dead tomorrow. So when should I live for the moment, and when should I sacrifice for a better future? This is no easy question, and there are no cookie-cutter responses. Life requires pleasure, and life requires sacrifice. How are we to seize the day? The enjoyment of the moment is best defined by our experience of pleasure. Thus, we introduced the philosophy of hedonism. Hedonism is a philosophy that the good life is measured by how much pleasure it contains, which makes you wonder how a formal philosophy ever arose out of those busy arousing themselves, if you know what I mean. Look at it this way. Pleasure is a form of communication, a communication by which the universe seduces you into a certain mode of behaving, aimed at survival. And what is important for survival? Basic needs like adequate shelter, food, social bonding. A witch finger, for instance. So sweet. Differs from a poisonous berry, which is often sour or bitter. Now the goofy cave asshole who said, "Man, I sure do love these bitter berries," probably didn't live long enough to pass on his bitter tooth to the next generation. The same principle applied to the cave asshole who loved cuddling with snakes and jellyfish. Hats off to those great uncles. Now, how about sex? After all, we aren't compelled to procreate through a thought or a commandment. None needed. We are compelled to procreate through an intense concentration of pleasurable release. The universe chose to communicate it that way. It knows us well. Let's not be bashful, people. I'm talking about an orgasm. And orgasms are fun! But clearly, if every orgasm created a human life, we would be overrun with people. Everywhere would be fucking China. There are other purposes for sex. Fostering intimacy, social bonds. Despite its risks, it's a pretty reliable source of oxytocin, if you think about it. But with any pleasure, food or sex, profiteers, i.e. we the people, have harnessed ways to intensify that pleasure and put price tags on those pleasures that were once procured in our natural world. Why go through the trouble of building an intimate relationship when you can have a prostitute who will blow you, fuck you, and even pee on you if that's your thing? At the very least, you can stimulate yourself for hours with pornography, which is so readily available in our time. Why have a witch finger when you can taste the rainbow? Yes, our natural dialogue with nature has been hijacked by the capitalistic manipulation of supersensory experience, and I can only expect these supersensory experiences to become more intense and ubiquitous. Drugs can be fun too. But some drugs are akin to the bait on a hook. Once you bite, you're hooked. And then your life becomes a living hell. Sorry if that was a mixed metaphor. But some drugs can bring you into greater alignment. Have you ever done peyote? A peyote ceremony with a serious Native American shaman. Me neither. But I bet it has its benefits, even though it ain't FDA approved. How about ayahuasca? Ever been to one of those ceremonies? I have. And I could assure you it's not the escapist recreational drug rituals experienced in college or prescribed on a doctor's note. So it is in life. It is the intention behind things that count. So while I can empathize with a heroin junkie prepping his or her arm for the smack needle, or the individual suffering from food addiction pulling into yet another fast food drive-thru, or the sex fiend loading his mind and body on pornography and prostitutes, life is a bitch that won't stop telling you how insurmountable your problems are, how insignificant you are, and how absurd it all is. This is not intellectual, this is real. We all know this pain, this loneliness and vulnerability. The fix puts you immediately back in the moment, at least for a while. You can feel connected to the moment and to the body. And isn't that closer to spirituality? The body is what is real. The thoughts you have about the body are fictions. Useful fictions, perhaps. Seductive. But fictions nonetheless. So is hedonism the answer? Should I direct my energies to the pursuit of life's pleasures? The more pleasures I accumulate, the better the quality of my life. Simple enough equation, huh? As you know, if you've been following this season in sequence, I've implicated our narratives as the catalyst for most of the problems in our human journey. I've suggested implicitly that a remedy for this malady is to get back to our body, to what engages us in our creative process. If so, pleasure, hedonism, sounds like a wonderful inroad to that. But somehow it not always is. It can get us into trouble. The problem with pleasure is that ultimately it is never enough. The hole you attempt to fill becomes wider and wider and wider, leaving you with an exponential need to fill it with more and more of that thing, that drug, that batch of Girl Scout cookies. At some point, the meaning of pleasure becomes replaced with the indulgence of it. And in the indulgence of it, we can lose touch with the meaning. And losing touch with the meaning, the proper aim of philosophy, is to disengage with a natural harmony with the cosmos. In pursuit of our gratuitous urges, we stop flirting with the muses, those poor, beautiful muses. Sometimes there are those who have become so detached from the deeper meaning of pleasure that their lives become consumed solely with the pursuit of that pleasure, that one thing, that crack pipe, the whiskey bottle, the next fuck. If one subsumes oneself to the reduction of hedonism without listening to the creative process the pleasures are calling you toward, they can become trapped in a cycle of pleasure and disintegration. What if the meaning of pleasure is to tease you forth in your creative process, to grow? Like that note in a melody, to put you at once in the moment and also reaching for a part of something even more liberating.
Trying to preach me, trying not to swallow, but the rhymes make easy all the words that I know.